When 6-year-old Tommy Williams was diagnosed with leukemia, his family faced bankruptcy. Then a mysterious benefactor started paying their medical bills. And the truth will amaze you. It was a cold February morning in 1974 when Carol Williams got the call that would change her family's life forever. Her 6-year-old son Tommy had been feeling tired and getting bruises that wouldn't heal. The blood test results were in, and Dr. Patricia Martinez at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis had devastating news. "Mrs. Williams, I need you and your husband to come in immediately. Tommy has acute lymphoblastic leukemia." Carol dropped the phone. Her world had just collapsed. Tommy Williams was the kind of kid who lit up every room he entered. Blonde hair, bright blue eyes, and a smile that could melt your heart. He loved baseball, wanted to be a firefighter when he grew up, and had never been seriously sick a day in his life. Now, at 6 years old, he was fighting for his life. Carol and her husband Mike rushed to St. Jude that afternoon. Dr. Martinez explained that Tommy would need immediate chemotherapy, radiation, and possibly a bone marrow transplant. The treatment would take at least 3 years, maybe more. "What are our chances?" Mike asked, his voice shaking. "With aggressive treatment, we're looking at about 60% survival rate," Dr. Martinez said gently. "But I need to be honest with you about something else. Even with insurance, you're looking at out-of-pocket costs of around $200,000 over the next few years." Mike Williams was a mechanic at a local garage. Carol worked part-time at a diner. They made decent money, but $200,000 might as well have been too. "We'll figure it out," Carol said, holding Tommy's small hand. "We'll do whatever it takes." But privately, both parents were terrified. How do you save your child's life when you can't afford to? 2 weeks after Tommy started treatment, Carol was at home paying bills when the phone rang. On the other end was a woman with a professional voice. "Mrs. Williams, this is Janet Morrison from St. Jude's billing department. I'm calling about Tommy's account." Carol's heart sank. "Here it comes," she thought. "The bill that's going to destroy us financially." "Ma'am, there seems to be some kind of mix-up with your account," Janet continued. "According to our records, someone has set up a payment plan to cover all of Tommy's treatment costs, not covered by insurance." Carol was confused. "I'm sorry, what do you mean?" "Someone, I can't tell you who because they've requested anonymity, has arranged to pay for everything. All the co-pays, the medications, the procedures that insurance won't cover. Everything." Carol sat down hard in her kitchen chair. "That's impossible. We don't know anyone who would." "Ma'am, I'm just telling you what's in our system. Your son's treatment is fully covered by an anonymous benefactor. You won't receive any more bill." Carol immediately called Mike at work. He thought she was losing her mind. "Carol, people don't just pay for strangers' medical bills. There has to be some mistake." But there was no mistake. Over the next few days, Carol called the hospital billing department repeatedly, trying to get answers. All they would tell her was that a law firm in Memphis had set up the payments and that the donor wanted to remain completely anonymous. "Can you at least tell me if it's a man or a woman?" Carol pleaded with Janet Morrison. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Williams. I can't share any details. But I can tell you this. Whoever it is, they specifically asked about Tommy's progress. They care about how he's doing." That night, Carol and Mike sat at their kitchen table, trying to figure out who could possibly be helping them. "Maybe it's one of your customers from the diner," Mike suggested. "Mike, my customers tip in quarters. Nobody I serve pie to has this kind of money." "What about that guy whose car I fixed last month? The one with the fancy suit?" But no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't think of anyone in their world who had the resources to do something like this. Meanwhile, the mysterious benefactor was keeping closer tabs on Tommy's progress than the family could have imagined. Every week, Dr. Martinez would receive a phone call from someone claiming to be a family friend, asking about Tommy's condition. The caller always knew specific details about the treatment and asked thoughtful questions about side effects and long-term prognosis. "Is Tommy keeping his weight up during chemo?" the caller would ask. "Is he able to play with other kids when his white cell count is good?" Martinez found these calls odd, but touching. Whoever was calling clearly cared deeply about Tommy's well-being. What Dr. Martinez didn't know was that the caller was Joe Esposito, Elvis Presley's road manager, and he was reporting back to Elvis after every conversation. So how did Elvis Presley end up paying for a stranger's child's cancer treatment? The story goes back to a chance encounter that most people would have forgotten, but Elvis never could. In December 1973, Elvis was leaving a late-night recording session at Stax Studios in Memphis when he stopped at an all-night diner for coffee. It was 2 a.m., and the place was nearly empty except for a tired-looking waitress and a young couple in a corner booth. The couple was Carol and Mike Williams, and they were having the kind of quiet, desperate conversation that parents have when they're scared out of their minds. Elvis couldn't help but overhear parts of their conversation as he sat at the counter. "The doctor says this we catch it early," Carol was saying. "How are we gonna pay for it? Carol, how are we gonna afford the treatments? We'll figure it out. We have to." Elvis turned slightly and saw Carol crying while Mike held her hand across the table. Between them was a small school photo of a blond boy with a gap-toothed grin. Elvis's heart broke a little. He'd grown up poor, and he remembered what it felt like when his family couldn't afford medical care. He also remembered being a scared kid in a hospital, wondering if his parents could pay the bills. "Elvis," quietly asked the waitress, "that couple over there, are they regulars?" "Carol and Mike." "Yeah, they come in sometimes after Carol's shift ends." "Nice people. They're going through a rough time right now. Their little boy's real sick." Elvis nodded and left the diner without saying anything to the couple, but he couldn't stop thinking about them. The next day, Elvis called his lawyer, Ed Hookstretton, and told him what he'd overheard. "Ed, I want you to find out about that family, the Williams family. Their boy is sick, and they can't afford treatment. I want to help, but they can't know it's me." "Elvis, you don't even know these people." "I don't need to know them. I know they need help, and I can provide it. Set it up through the law firm. Anonymous." "And Ed, I want to know how the boy is doing. Regular updates." What followed was one of the most elaborate charitable operations Elvis ever organized. Ed Hookstretton set up a trust fund specifically for Tommy Williams's medical expenses. Joe Esposito was tasked with gathering information about Tommy's progress. Even Elvis's accountant, Vernon Presley, Elvis's father, was kept in the loop. But Elvis didn't stop at just paying the bills. When he learned that Tommy loved baseball, Elvis had Joe anonymously send Tommy a complete set of Memphis Chicks baseball gear. When Tommy was too sick from chemo to go to school, Elvis arranged for a private tutor, again anonymously. "Elvis would ask me every week, 'How's the boy doing? Is he gaining weight? Are his parents holding up okay?'" Joe Esposito later revealed he was more invested in Tommy's recovery than some people are with their own family members. In the summer of 1975, Tommy had a setback. His white cell count dropped dangerously low, and he developed a serious infection that put him in intensive care for 2 weeks. During this crisis, Elvis was on tour, but he called Joe every single day for updates. "Boss, the kid's real sick," Joe told him during a call from Las Vegas. "The doctors aren't sure if he's gonna make it." Elvis was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that showed just how deeply he cared about this child he'd never met. "Joe, I want you to go to the hospital. Not as my representative, just as a concerned friend of the family. Make sure they have everything they need. And Joe, if the boy needs anything, experimental treatments, specialists, anything, you make sure it happens. Money is no object." Fortunately, Tommy pulled through. The infection cleared, his white cell count stabilized, and he was able to continue treatment. By Christmas 1975, he was in remission. Throughout Tommy's recovery, the Williams family kept trying to figure out who their guardian angel was. Carol even hired a private investigator with their savings to try to track down the anonymous donor. "Whoever you are," Carol said in a letter she asked the hospital to forward to the benefactor, "you saved our son's life. We think about you every day and pray for you every night. Thank you isn't enough, but it's all we have." Elvis kept that letter in his bedroom at Graceland for the rest of his life. The truth about Elvis's secret charity didn't come out until 1998, more than 20 years after his death. Joe Esposito was writing his memoir about working for Elvis when he decided it was time to tell the Tommy Williams story. By then, Tommy was 30 years old, married, and had 2 children of his own. He'd been cancer-free for over 20 years and was working as a paramedic in Memphis, inspired, he said, by the medical professionals who had saved his life. When Joe contacted the Williams family to tell them the truth, Carol's first reaction was disbelief. Elvis Presley? That's impossible. Why would Elvis Presley care about us? But as Joe shared details that only the true benefactor would know, like the baseball gear, the private tutor, and the specific questions about Tommy's treatment, the family realized it was true. In 1999, Joe arranged for the Williams family to visit Graceland and meet Priscilla Presley, who confirmed the story and showed them Elvis's personal files about Tommy's case. Elvis kept every medical report, Priscilla told them, every update about Tommy's progress, every photo Joe sent him, every letter you wrote to thank your anonymous benefactor. He cared about your family more than you'll ever know. Carol broke down crying when she saw the file. There were dozens of documents, all organized chronologically, showing Elvis's involvement in every aspect of Tommy's care. He never met Tommy, Carol said through her tears, but he loved him like family. As it turned out, Tommy Williams wasn't Elvis's only secret charity case. After Joe's book was published, dozens of families came forward with similar stories. Elvis had paid for cancer treatments, surgeries, and medical care for complete strangers throughout the 1970s. Elvis couldn't walk past someone in need, Joe explained in interviews. If he heard about a family struggling with medical bills, he'd find a way to help, but he never wanted credit for it. He said charity wasn't charity if you bragged about it. The total amount Elvis spent on anonymous medical charity has been estimated at over $2 million, equivalent to about $10 million today. Today, Tommy Williams runs a non-profit organization that helps families navigate the financial challenges of childhood cancer treatment. He calls it the Anonymous Angel Foundation, in honor of Elvis. Elvis Presley saved my life, Tommy says in speeches to raise money for the foundation. But more than that, he taught my family about the power of anonymous kindness. He showed us that sometimes the most meaningful help comes from people who expect nothing in return. Every year on the anniversary of his diagnosis, Tommy visits Elvis's grave at Graceland to say thank you. This story reveals something beautiful about Elvis Presley that often gets lost in all the talk about his fame and fortune. Yes, he was the king of rock and roll, but he was also a man who remembered what it felt like to be poor, to be scared, to need help and not know where to find it. Elvis never forgot his roots, and he never forgot that with great privilege comes great responsibility. He used his wealth not just to buy cars and houses for himself, but to quietly, anonymously save lives. Elvis always said that God gave him his talents for a reason, Priscilla Presley once explained. He felt responsible for using his success to help people, especially children. The Tommy Williams case wasn't unusual for Elvis, it was just who he was. The story of Elvis and Tommy Williams reminds us that the most powerful acts of kindness are often the ones nobody knows about. Elvis could have easily publicized his charity work, used it for good press, made himself look like a hero. Instead, he chose to help quietly, anonymously, asking for nothing in return, except the knowledge that he was making a difference in someone's life. That's the real measure of a person's character, not what they do when everyone's watching, but what they do when nobody's looking. Elvis Presley may have been the king of rock and roll, but stories like this prove he was also the king of something much more important: compassion. Tommy Williams is now 56 years old and just became a grandfather. Every milestone in his life, his high school graduation, his wedding, the birth of his children, and now his grandchildren, exists because a stranger in a diner decided to care. And maybe that's the greatest legacy any of us can leave. Not the songs we sang or the fame we achieved, but the lives we quietly touched when nobody was watching. If this incredible story of Elvis's secret kindness moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear about the power of anonymous generosity. Have you ever experienced unexpected kindness from a stranger? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to ring that notification bell for more amazing true stories about the heart behind music's greatest legends.